Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, and welcome to this exclusive conversation centered around the Valentine's Day, brought to you by the ISKCON Vaishnavi Ministry. We have with us Her Grace Ujjwala Radhe Prabhu today, whom we are going to have this deeply stimulating and insightful discussion with. Thank you so much, Ujjwala Prabhu, for being with us here today.
Hare Krishna, it's my pleasure.
So, Her Grace Ujjwala Radhe Prabhu comes from a traditional South Indian family in Andhra Pradesh. She joined the Hare Krishna movement in the year 2005 during her internship at Osmania Medical College and Dental Hospital in Hyderabad. Ever since then, she has been active in youth preaching, conducting systematic courses and training young girls across India and overseas. As an author, speaker, life coach, and a psychologist, she brings in her variegated academic experience into teaching the Shastras. To make the scriptures relevant to the current generation is her central focus, and that is so beautiful. She authored the book The Woman Who Rebuilt, the authentic tale of Draupadi with 8 empowering lessons. And she has done her research on mantra meditation at AIMS Rishikesh and is currently a PhD scholar in Indian knowledge systems and mental health applications at IIT Mandi. She currently offers Vedic courses at the IITs, WITS, and other educational institutions as a Bhakti Shastri teacher. She also conducts regular weekly sessions on core philosophy. To tell you a little bit more about Ujjwala Radhe Prabhu, she also heads the Girls' Voice of the satellite centers at ISKCON Hyderabad. So she and her good husband, His Grace Sudama Gopal Prabhu, serve as official counselors at ISKCON, and they have an 8-year-old daughter. So she and her husband, His Grace Sudama Gopal Prabhu, together they run a Gurukul named Mudgala Rishikulam. So that is so beautiful, and it is truly, truly our pleasure to have you on board with us here today, Ujjwala Radhe Prabhu. What an insightful discussion we are going to have today on such an insightful and an important topic. But before we begin, dear devotees, it is important for us to seek the blessings of our acharyas, to seek the blessings of Srila Prabhupada, because of whom we have this platform to discuss these insightful topics and to practice bhakti and to delve into the joy of devotion. So let's chant the invocation prayers. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Shitarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samved Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. So, with that, let's begin this conversation with Ujjwala Prabhu. So, Haribol, Prabhu, there is this one very simple question that I want to start this discussion with. Since it is Valentine's Day, I really want to ask you, how do you see the concepts of love and Valentine, and what do these words mean to you? Over to you, Prabhu.
Yes. Thank you, Yashika, actually, for inviting me to this show. And I especially wish to appreciate all the wonderful activities and the programs the ISKCON Vaishnavi Ministry is coming up with. So grateful, so laudable. It's really shelter giving to many Vaishnavis and women across the world. Thank you very much. And much honor to be on this show today. And I'd like to share my brief experience and whatever I have gathered from various authentic sources. So coming back to your question, so what does this word love and perhaps Valentine mean? So I would go to the history of how this Valentine's Day has actually evolved. In fact, it's much contrary to what it actually looks like today, right? So
Mm-hmm.
today, Valentine's Day is celebrated in perhaps a very different setting and mood and expectation. But the history has it that there is there are two saints, yeah, and these two saints are both called Saint Valentine. And one of the saints belonged to Rome in the third century. That's in the second half of third century. That's like 2.5 centuries after the birth of Christ. He belonged to that era, and he was very much dedicated to the mission of spreading the love of God. So that's what he has sacrificed his life for, and that's what he lived for. And he was a celibate monk, and he lived his whole life for this purpose. And unfortunately, the history has it that he was murdered uh, out of some and tortured and murdered. It was so this happened during that era. And much later, also, there was another Saint Valentine who was a bishop, and he too exactly did the same thing. He preached the message of God, and in and he too was murdered around, for the same. He was tortured. In fact, he was tortured and murdered for carrying out the gospel or the message of God to the common public. And so why is Valentine's Day celebrated? It is actually 14th of February is supposed to be the day on which these saints were murdered, actually, February 14th. So, but the Valentine's Day that we celebrate now is actually introduced many years ago in the context of, this is the season of, it's a new beginning, it's a spring season. Recently, we've also observed this beautiful festival of Vasanta Panchami, right?
Yes.
So it's like a new beginning of the year where the spring comes, after the cold winter. So this is the time that perhaps there's some kind of a romantic ambience around, and the male and female birds come together and they kiss, and it's an environment of mating. So this is how the neo concept of Valentine's Day has evolved from these birds, touching their beaks to each other. It's about actually celebrating a new beginning. And so that's like how, there's no authentic connection to actual Saint Valentine, who has actually sacrificed his life to spread the love of God. So perhaps Vaishnavas can see it in that spirit of what a Valentine's Day is. It's a day to appreciate those great saints who have given their life to spread the mission of love of God. And the materialists see it in the light of those lusty birds trying to get some pleasure out of each other's bodies. Yeah. So actually, a deeper understanding is, love is not something that is excluded from the realm of spirituality. In fact, it is the very goal of spirituality. Prema Pumartho Mahan. It is the Panchama Purushartha, the crest jewel of all attainments. So there are the Purushartha Chatushtaya, the Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, religiosity, economic development, pleasures, and liberations. Yeah, these are the four goals of a normal human being, a good human being, let's say. That's what they want to get out of life. Although in the modern day, people have removed the dharma and the moksha part of the four purusharthas. They're only running after artha and kama, economic development and pleasures. excluded dharma and moksha. Yes. Nonetheless, but beyond these four purusharthas is the highest purushartha, the purushartha shiromani. Yeah, that's the highest achievement of a human, attainment pure love of God. Yes, that love that is untinged by material motivations, selfishness, egoistic agendas, which is unconditional and which is unmotivated by materialistic ideologies. Yeah. That is pure, pure as the crystal clear water. Yeah. Not tainted with the dirt of the three modes of material nature. Yeah. That's the highest attainment. Certainly, it's the greatest attainment of this of human life. That's pure love. Even scriptures call it as, the definitions that is given in the scriptures is Atmendriya Preeti. Yeah, is Tare Bola Kama. Kama or lust is when you're trying to gratify your own senses. And Krishnendriya Preeti, when you're trying to satisfy the senses of Lord Krishna, that is prema, love. So this is perhaps setting the context for the Valentine's Day and how a materialist sees it and how the spiritualists see it, and how there is a gross deviation. Love is something perhaps the most talked about, but oftentimes the least understood word.
That was so beautiful, Prabhu, to set the context and the history which you told. Of course, there are so many of us, people like me, we don't know what is really the history behind this day. When couples usually they are out there celebrating the love which they carry or whatsoever. But yes, that is truly, truly beautiful. It's very interesting. And this was the best way in which the context could be set, especially when you said that there are two views at Valentine's Day, 14th of February. That is the materialist view and the spiritualist view. And especially your last line, which you said, and that is what I want to question you further on, that when we say love is the most important but the least understood word, and when we look at it from the spiritualist point of view, can you tell us something which can help us as well in our own relationships? Because at the end of the day, even we as spiritualists, or maybe as aspiring spiritualists, if I talk about myself, aspiring spiritualists, aspiring bhakti practitioners, we get into relationships with each other. And by relationships, I mean Vaishnav relationships. We have our devotee Sangha association. We also have to enter Grahasthashram after a certain stage, after a certain point in life. And I'm sure that all the Vaishnavis listening to this relate with this pretty much, pretty well. So, is there something that we as spiritualists can keep in mind when we enter into relationships, into Grahasthashram, wherein love is also required? What is the position of love then? What is the form of love then? Can you say something on this? And then I have more questions.
So, yes. Interestingly, Yashika, what's the most important component of or a prerequisite for a Vedic wedding or a real wedding?
What?
What is the most important component or a prerequisite for a wedding to happen?
Blessings of your elders?
All right. Yeah, that's
Or maybe the
fine.
horoscope? If I talk of India, the horoscope?
Yes, that's also important. The most important, which stands out as, the most important. Like, for example, let's say the blessings of the superiors, perhaps in the Gandharva kind of marriage, it happens without the consent. Still, it's a marriage.
Um,
In fact, Krishna married Rukmini in that way. He took her away and got her married. Yeah.
so I am unable to think of the answer, bro. I think you need to burst the bubble.
Yes. So the most important prerequisite for a wedding is the consent of the girl.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
And this was the kind of respect and importance uh, and value that girl's choice is given for all time. And for any wedding to really be functional and successful, the most important criterion is the consent of the girl. So that is why the girl has been given, the choice baton, which is it's a great responsibility, in fact. And with when there is such great responsibility, it also requires that kind of a training. It's not easy to make the right choice. Yeah. If we do not understand that the criterion for choice making, perhaps we might be quite wrong in in whom we choose, and going ahead, turn back, and there comes a time which is called the midlife crisis, 40 years, and then you look back and reflect on your own choice and think maybe I should have chosen someone else. So
Yes,
that's something very, very tragic that's happening
that's very
quite
fascinating,
often
Prabhu,
in
I
modern
must
day.
say. Yes, yes, please go on.
Yes. So
Yes, so that's
since the
very
girl has,
fascinating. That's very fascinating, Prabhu, because it's until few years or maybe few decades ago, not really even few decades in India, but few years, few decades ago, that we started respecting consent and the girl's choice in a marriage, especially the girl's choice in a marriage. And few of us know that in the Vedic times, in the Vedic weddings, this was the most important prerequisite that the girl agrees to it. Absolutely. Please go on, Prabhu.
yes. So here's where the importance of understanding the what mean, a thorough grasp of
The
our own
criteria.
dharma shastras, yeah, of who could be the right groom, and how should he be selected. How should one makes a con I mean how should one make a conscious choice. This kind of a training is actually a part of education. It should be a
Yes.
part of education.
I was
Yeah.
about to ask you
It,
this next. So once you complete,
if
Prabhu,
not,
I'll just ask you a question related to this. Yes.
if not, one's choice can be pretty random. It could be based on mere externals, or really, and these days, the most unfortunate situation, especially in the West, is, I've heard the statistics quite alarming. 70% of the marriages are broken in the first 5 years of marriage. 70%. That's a very alarming statistic to say. So
And it just shows the quality of marriages, the quality of married lives people have there.
yeah, and India it's just following the West, and no sooner is it going to get there. Yeah.
So,
So this is a
Prabhu,
very, very important aspect one needs to really study and look into, and pay attention to.
mm, absolutely. So, Prabhu, in relation to this aspect, and I was about to ask you this question the moment you said that we need to be trained in choosing a husband or maybe a partner because the girl's consent is very important. So these days there is this very popular term, red flag and green flag. So it's a very social media term, very popular on social media, very popular amongst the youth. And people are really trying hard to understand what does this term mean. So in the context of devotees, in the context of aspiring or practicing Vaishnavis in ISKCON around the world, what do you think are few red flags that we can see, we can look for while choosing our partner? A very important and very practical question that we really need to have a discussion about.
Yeah, that's a very important topic you've touched upon, Yashika. Uh, Identifying red flags in a relationship. Yeah. This is something every mature woman should be aware of. So, red flags are those marks, I mean, those, let's say, indicators in a relationship that, sound an alarm. Hey, please check if this is the right person. This is the right person for you. Yeah. So these red flags, are of many types. Most important of them is look out for any expression of controlling attitude. Some people can be really controlling, and that controlling might result in isolating you from your family and from your relatives, and from your friends. So this kind of isolating or this kind of a controlling attitude is a sure red flag in a relationship. Going ahead, that can cause a lot of disappointment and suffocation in relationships. Yeah. So unfortunately, in the a part of the Vedic education is that boys were trained in brahmacharya, and after brahmacharya there is the grihasthashram. And as a part of brahmachari training, there's also a training of developing right attitudes, of seeing God as the supreme proprietor and seeing the newly wedded wife as the property of God, and they connect with her in the platform of a sacred relationship where they respect the woman as a sacred property and truly worship her, yeah, as a goddess of fortune. Yeah, this is the training that's inbuilt in our Vedic system. So when this is the training, then the vision of the boy is totally different about the girl. She's not just an object of fulfilling one's desires, but she's the goddess of fortune who walked into my life to make this home a residence of the Supreme Lord. Yeah, she came to sanctify this home, bring joy, warmth, love, and affection to the members, to bond people. Yeah. So when this is the attitude towards a girl, there is so much of love and respect. And at the time of marriage, the boy uh, promises to protect the girl. Yes, this is one of the promises. What is the meaning of protecting the girl? Protecting means not just a physical protection where you just make her feel secure, a kind of good home. Yes, that's also security at a physical level. But also, there's a promise of protecting the girl's emotions. Emotions from being, because the girl is just coming to the home for the boy. He's the main person. Yes. And when she's stepping into a new home, she's vulnerable. Yeah. Just like a plant that is uprooted from an old environment and planted in a new environment needs a lot of care. It needs a special care, attention, feeling of emotional security where she can express herself, be herself. So this is the protection that the husband promises at the time of marriage. So opposing to these attitudes are the red flags in the relationship. Yeah, controllership, and tendency to isolate you from the family, from the friends, etc. And having an abusive disposition. Yeah, abuse that could be verbal or physical. These are also red flags. And also, there's something called gaslighting, which is very, very subtle. That is, somehow or the other, they manifest their ego in different ways and make you feel that what you're doing is wrong and they are right. Yeah, it's like brushing their superiority complex on you. So, these are some red flags that you need to look out for. Another red flag, a sure red flag, is dishonesty. Dishonesty is something very dangerous, and it's honesty is the very foundation of relationship. There are three pillars which stand as a foundation for good relationship: integrity, maturity, and non-enviousness. So integrity is, it is said that if you're sane when you're all by your own, and even when you're outside, you have that sense of integrity and accountability to the Lord within your heart, who's sitting as a super soul. That is called integrity. Then maturity, being mature in one's dealing and being non-envious. So these days, that's another thing. Boys and girls are both equally competent, equally educated. There's so many ego issues that happen between both of them. And if you do not know how to handle each other's, equal competence, it leads to so many ego clashes and frictions and fights and disagreements and conflicts. Yeah. So these are all things to be, that's why premarital training is so important for both boys and girls. Yeah. It's a very important, because it's a promise at the time of wedding that we are taking this relationship all through our life with responsibility. So since the education is not providing this kind of a training, something like a good premarital training will equip both ends, both the boy and girl, in entering into the relationship with the right attitude. So I have stated about 4, 5 red flags here. Number 1 is dishonesty. Another is isolating you from your people. Controlling attitude, especially, is very important to look at. Yeah.
Then also abusive.
And also one more thing is, indecisiveness. So these are all things which are to be looked at before choosing a partner.
I was just listening to you with rapt attention, Prabhu, and I was taking down all that you were saying. So I prepared proper notes based on your answer. I'll just summarize it for everyone here. So red flags, they are alarms wherein you must check. It's like an alarm that just check if you're making the right choice or not. Controlling attitude, tendency to isolate you, an abusive disposition, gaslighting, dishonesty, indecisiveness. These are some red flags that we need to look out for. Integrity, maturity, and non-enviousness are the foundation pillars of a good relationship. And in order to ensure this, a premarital training is very important. Because at this point in time, we don't have gurukuls, we don't have the gurukul system. Okay, except for that we do have certain gurukuls in ISKCON, but at least for girls, and somewhere it's not possible for every devotee kid to go to a gurukul from a very young age, from what we observe and from what we experience. But yes, a premarital training is something very important to ensure that all of this gets balanced, and all the education that we get in the material world, it comes to a sort of balance that helps us in our grihastha life further. Uh, when you spoke about the premarital training, Prabhu, I got reminded of the grihasthashram courses that, no, of these courses, these premarital training courses that are provided by the grihasthashram division. But yes, we will have to check into that. However, this was a very wholesome answer, and premarital training is very important. Prabhu, would you touch upon that aspect a little on premarital training? After that, I'll ask you another question based on this. That who is the best person to get a premarital training from, and what all should a premarital training, comprise of?
Okay. So essentially, one very important quality that the modern day girls are suffering from, the core reason why the relationships are not lasting, is that one quality that they truly lack, which is called commitment. people are scared to commit, yeah, and because of which, either they're scared to even hear the word marriage because they don't want to get into something that is long lasting. This is all perhaps could be the environment they grew up in, examples they have seen in their lives. Yeah, this is one of the reasons that most of the women today, not just women, even men, are not feeling sure of committing to one person. And also that if there are too many bad experiences or traumatic experiences with relationships, so that's when a person is not open for a marriage. So we see in this beautiful example of Devahuti, if you read the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a beautiful description of how Swayambhuva Manu, the father of Devahuti, and along with his wife, what a beautiful grihastha ashram that he had led. Yeah, he was the emperor. Manu means the first progenitor, the entire mankind. Yes, and he ruled over the entire earth. Yeah, and he was a royal king, and he lived in a place called Balhishmati. And Bhagavatam states that every morning when he wakes up, is to ensure that they were the whole family is centered around worshiping and glorifying the Supreme Lord. And also parallelly, he also enjoyed his life, his grihastha with his wife. So Devahuti has seen a happy marriage in her parents, Swayambhuva Manu and his good wife. And she's also, the disciple of Narada Muni. And she heard from Narada Muni about the glory of devotional service, the ultimate goal of life. And then she also heard about Kardama Muni, who is a great devotee of the Lord. So, she's seen a good example and she has got a great teacher like Narada Muni. Yes. And then she's made such a great choice. She fixed her mind on a pure devotee of the Lord because she understood the goal of life. And Swayambhuva Manu, being a royal emperor, respected the choice of his daughter, and being the king, he took, the Bhagavatam states that he traveled on a chariot, Swayambhuva Manu, his wife, and his daughter. And he went all the way to the hermitage of Kardama Muni, which is deep down in the jungle. He's a renunciate, with matted locks and hardly, wearing a loincloth. And with such respect, he offers his daughter in marriage to Kardama Muni. Yeah. So this is what comprises of a good premarital training. Good premarital training is seeing good examples of grihasthas in our life, especially our own family members have that positive influence, and a good teacher like how Devahuti had Narada Muni. Interestingly, there's one episode in Devahuti's life that she was known for her unparalleled beauty. So one day on her terrace of her palace, she was just playing with a ball, and there was a Gandharva who was flying on an airplane, in his own ratha, just flying. And when he saw Devahuti, he was so enamored by her glamour, he literally fell off from the chariot. But at that time, Devahuti was, she preserved her heart for the right person. Yeah. He fell for her doesn't mean that, she also had to accept his proposal. So this is one more very important quality.
So that was a very interesting story that you just narrated, Prabhu. And I would love for you to once again, expand on that one aspect, one teaching which you were pointing towards that we get from Devakruti.
Yes. So here's where exercising the choice muscle comes, wherein it's important that we preserve our heart for the right person. Just like the Gandharva Vishwavasu, although he fell from his airplane for Devahuti, she didn't care about him. Yes. So we come across these Gandharvas in our life who perhaps come with the red roses and the dark chocolates. It's not necessary that we need to show compassion. So this is another toolkit that should be ready. A girl should be ready with. Yeah. So showing compassion at the wrong place. Women are very soft-hearted and they're compassionate, but their compassion should be channelized in the right direction and towards the right and worthy persons. Yeah. Showing compassion at the wrong place, that's number one. And not knowing how to say no when they have to. So these are perhaps two very important skills that a girl should be equipped with. Yeah. Having the discrimination of where to show compassion and the ability to say no when they have to. Yeah. So these are very important skills a girl should learn. That is, assertiveness and showing compassion at the right place. So here's what we can learn from the example of Devahuti, that to be clear about what you really want in life, and ability to say no to the options that don't align with your goal. So these are some learnings from the life and example of Devahuti, who exemplified being the perfect daughter, the perfect wife, and the perfect mother in her life. Yeah.
That is beautiful, Prabhu. So, first and foremost, we need to be clear as we learn from Devakruti. We need to have that clarity as to what we really want in life. And in our case, that clarity is usually there that we want Krishna Prem. So that is the end goal. And that is also going to be my last question for this show, for this particular conversation. But yes, being clear, then showing compassion in the right place and not in the wrong place, and knowing the difference between what place is right for your compassion, what place is not. That discriminatory power here is very important. And then the ability to say no when required. These are the skills that girls must train themselves in. And with that, you've given all our viewers, you've given me, our audience, and all the people who are going to come back to this particular episode and watch this again and again, a very important toolkit where you started from talking about the history of Valentine's Day to talking about the difference between materialist and spiritualist viewpoint, then consent for the girl as an most important prerequisite in Vedic marriage. Then you expounded on the red flags that we must be aware of when looking for a partner, when looking for a husband, and when looking forward to start our Grihastha life. Integrity, maturity, non-enviousness as important foundation pillars of a relationship, importance of premarital training. And then through the story of Devakruti, you actually expanded on so many important points, starting from preserving our heart for the right person to being clear about what we want in life. And with that, I really want to ask you this one last question, Rahul. That to end this interesting conversation, that when we talk about serving Krishna together as a married couple in marriage, having a married life which is dedicated to Krishna, dedicated to their lordships, and dedicated to finding Krishna Prem together, what are some of the pointers that we can remember that point in time, pre-marriage and during marriage, while that married life is on?
That's an important question, Yashika. So, as your question is about how to serve Krishna together. So, this reminds me of a very wonderful and graphic example that I have learned in a seminar that was long ago conducted by His Grace Dwarkadish Prabhu and his good wife Vishakha Priya Mataji. So serving Krishna together is like the prayojana. There is sambandha, there is abhideya, and there's prayojana, right? Three aspects. Similarly, in a relationship between husband and wife, especially, uh, serving Krishna together is like the prayojana. So it's like, imagine there's a cow, and have you ever milked a cow, Yashika? No? Right. So if you ever go to a village or you go to Goshala, just try doing that. So what happens is when you go and try to milk a cow, especially you go to the udder, what's the instant and first reaction of the cow? It hits you. It doesn't let you touch the udder. Okay, that's the most instant reaction of the cow. So the prayojana of the relationship, which is serving Krishna together, is like the milk of the cow. Okay. So sometimes very prematurely, couples, if they're not mature enough, they tend to focus too much on that prayojana, the end goal of the relationship, and neglect some foundational concepts of actually mutual bonding. Yeah. If you want to milk the cow, what's the first thing you need to do? You need to befriend the cow.
Yes.
Yes, pamper it a little. Yes, bond with the cow. Yeah. When the cow then feels assured that, yes, here's a person, with whom I'm safe, or it allows you to touch the other. Yes. So similarly, the relationship is like that cow. Yeah. So first take care of the cow, befriend, spend time understanding each other, knowing each other, being kind to each other. Yes. So understanding each other's needs, interests, concerns, where you're coming from. Yes. And find that bonding, find that joy in your relationship. Then service to Krishna automatically manifests from a good bonding. On the other hand, overemphasis on only service to the exclusion of mutual bonding has often proved very costly in many relationships that I have seen, that led to so many misunderstandings and feelings of dissatisfaction, and feelings of being lost, disconnected. And over a period of time, it reflects in one's own sadhana and one's own spirituality. So a good bonding is the very foundation of a relationship, be it material or spiritual. That is the reason, that's the reason why people match horoscopes, because when the natures are similar, it's easy to bind. Yeah, that is the reason why also the compatibilities, checked at various levels. Yeah. So when the two individuals are compatible, and especially they are convinced and they're heading towards the same goal, that's really amazing. Yes. So for that, a proper foundation of mutual love. Yeah. And one of the instructions that I have received is, when one senior devotee said that wife and husband should indeed compete with each other. And what should they compete? They should compete to serve each other. Yes, such a healthy relationship actually brings forth a lot of seva to Krishna. So if this kind of a mutual understanding and love, kindness, and respect is lacking, then even if there is a lot of service coming out of such a family, it cannot be consistent, or it cannot bring happiness. It's just a feeling of burnout in the process. Yeah, and perhaps they don't stand the right example for people who are following them. So since you're, very close to that beautiful ashrama of Grihastha, so it's important to know and understand these fine concepts that are often neglected. Yeah. So yeah, these are all what is covered perhaps in premarital training, what to expect. And with such bonding, and when you're really There's a bonding of trust, love, and kindness together. Then the kind of service that can manifest on the foundation and platform of such a bond is really beautiful. There's so many examples even in our own community where husband and wife situated in a stable grihastashram have become a shelter for hundreds and hundreds of families. So this is the importance of mutual love, mutual respect, being kind and empathetic in relationships. I hope this answers your question, Yashika.
Absolutely. And it beautifully once again answers my question. And this is the question of so many girls, young girls my age, young girls, elder to me even, and young girls who are still Mataji's, Vaishnavis who are still in that uh, marriage, who are in the Grihasthashram. So, absolutely. I mean, you covered everything, Prabhu. So, the example which you gave of milking that cow, it was so interesting, so beautiful. And the way you connected it to the prayojan of serving Krishna and the foundation being a good bond, mutual love, respect, trust. I think nothing could have been more wholesome to be discussing this on Valentine's Day. This conversation truly made the Valentine's Day for all of us who are listening to this. And with that, Prabhu, if you were to give one final message, I know I had said earlier that this will be my last question. Still, one final message to all the Vaishnavis, to all the devotees listening to this. If you were to say it in 1 to 2 lines, what would that be? Especially for this Valentine's Day.
Okay, so on this Valentine's Day, it's very nice to remember about the original love story of Lord Krishna and Rukmini and the original love letter in the history of this world. Yes. So that's what true love is. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunon Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Koriye Udoy. Yeah, pure love for Krishna is inherent in the heart of every individual. Yes, it's dormant in the heart of every living entity, every Jivatma. And how do we awaken that dormant loving propensity? Shravanadi, by hearing. By hearing. So regular hearing of great scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam can reawaken this dormant love and give us all that the soul is searching for since time immemorial. Just as Rukmini Devi, her father, has invited all great souls and saints to their home, to their palace regularly. And Rukmini has heard about Krishna from Narada Muni, and hearing from Krishna, about Krishna from a pure devotee like Narada Muni. Yes, her love has awakened. This is true love. The modern saying is a person falls in love, but that's not real love. A person stands up in love by hearing through the process of Shravanam. Love is awakened in the heart. So, and this is how exactly Rukmini has loved Krishna, through hearing about him.
Hari Hari.
And perhaps that's the process she is giving to the whole world. Process of awakening that dormant love that is in the heart of every individual. Hear about the eternal lover, Lord Krishna. Thank you very much.
And with that, we come to the finale of a very beautiful discussion, a very insightful conversation. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Prabhu, Ujjwala Radhe Prabhu. It was an absolute pleasure to be listening to you. And we learned so much from you. To all the viewers who are here till now, thank you so much for listening to this conversation. Thank you so much for being here up till now. And whatever you've learned, please mention that in the comments so that you remember that, because those were some very important points that Prabhu gave us in this particular episode. And with that, thank you so much for staying connected, staying tuned with the ISKCON Vaishnavi Ministry YouTube channel. Please follow us on all our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere. If you're new here, please subscribe so that you don't miss out on any such lovely, wonderful conversations from devotees for devotees, from Vaishnavis for Vaishnavis. And thank you so much, Prabhu. Once again, thank you so much, dear devotees. Once again, Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.